Hey everyone, Tactics here, and in this video I'll be going through Mythic Lords of Dread, what you can do to kind of prepare yourself for that boss fight, things like the method raid tools note, how to set up healing CDs, what kind of raid composition you want, and important WeakAuras, all that stuff, and also walk you through our very first kill of that boss. Luckily this video is going to be much shorter than my Anduin video because this boss is pretty similar to its heroic counterpart. There's just a couple minor differences. The main one being after the bosses actually cast their major abilities, so that big swarm ability or the Among Us ability, they will get empowered. So I believe after the swarm ability, occasionally the boss will shoot additional swarms from himself, and also the swarms during that time will stack up faster, so you may actually need to pass them. Whereas after Among Us, you'll have a period of time where you can't be out of 8 yards of a friendly player for more than 4 seconds. So if you move away, you have a 4-second debuff to get back to someone, or you get horrified. And that's most of the changes. The only other changes are basically the timing stuff is coming in and the overlaps you have to deal with, and I'll cover that in the actual VOD portion. But first, let's talk about composition. The number one thing I can recommend to guilds getting this boss right now is to 6 heal it. This boss is pretty much like a lot of the damage is hyper focused in those swarms, and 6 healing means you can pretty much stack up those healing CDs in all of those swarms to make sure they're pretty safe. And then you would have additional spot healing for people that get hit by the carrion debuff, those green puddles that cause the circles, or just are applied to some players, and those players do need quite a bit of spot healing. So having 6 healers really lets you keep those players safe. So my number one recommendation, 6 heal. Even if it's like a DPS main who's healing as an off spec. For example, in our kill, we had our Boomkin playing Resto Druid. It's really worth it. Trust me. The damage check on this boss is pretty much not there anymore, so it's not a big deal. I believe on our kill, 6 healing, we killed at just after the 4th swarm ended, and you still have another like 30-40 seconds until the enrage at that point if your DPS is a little slower. So trust me, 6 healing is for sure the way. In terms of healing CD setup, we kind of just made sure we had some DR and some throughput on each. We only had 1 rally. If you have 2 rallies, you can just put a rally alternating swarms, so you can have rallies on every swarm, which is very good. Timing of these debuffs is or healing CDs rather, is the big thing. So rally, for example, because these swarms ramp up over the duration and over the course of the fight, you want to make sure rally is always covering the end of the swarm. So if you have the max level rally conduit, it's like a 14-second rally, so make sure you rally when there's like 13-14 seconds left on the swarm. Similarly for Spirit Link, here Spirit Link is our main DR here, so we're Spirit Linking at the end with the darkness is what we're doing in 1 and 3, and insta though will Devo Aura to kind of lead into that point where we get the Spirit Link darkness down. Unlike Swarm 2 and 4, where we're Spirit Linking early on whenever we need to, and Barrier is backloaded, so when there's like 9-10 seconds left on the Swarm, Barrier goes down, everyone gets in it, so it absorbs the very last hits of the Swarm, which are the scariest. The other thing you can do is assign things like health pots, health stones, and of course personals as well to all these swarms. But you can health pot Swarm 2 and 4, and you can health stone Swarm 3 as needed. You can personal 3-minute personals work on 2 and 4 is my recommendation. 2-minute personals can go on literally every single one. So really important to have all those kind of defensives planned out. Make sure people are actually using those defensives, because it will make this fight go so much quicker. Now let's talk about WeakAuras a little bit here. So we have, this is the number one WeakAura I would say for this fight, most important. You do have to do some custom textures things by downloading this and putting it into your WoW file. Trust me, it's fine. It's not a virus, promise. But basically it shows you these green arrows where the swarms are going to shoot out of your character when you clear in the fear circles, and this just lets you kind of aim to not hit the person in the middle, not hit the melee stack as best you can. And of course there will be more and more swarms, I guess these are carrions, sorry, carrions shooting out throughout the fight, so very helpful WeakAura to help you aim them a little bit better. Next we have the slumber clouds. this one will just tell you kind of count down when you need to bait. A lot of the melee baits, you'll see they'll actually move off the boss to bait the Slumber Clouds. And similarly, range can move behind where the old Slumber Clouds already are and bait the new ones near the old ones to kind of maximize the amount of space we have. So this is good for everyone to have. This is just a grip reminder for your DK to pull in the ad once it's actually targetable. So I do recommend having one DK for grips. You don't need a DK. Highly, highly, highly recommended. Have one. This one is for the mythic mechanic after the swarm happens. So like I mentioned, Mal'Ganis will shoot 4 of the carrion puddles in the cardinal directions when he spawns carrion in that phase, just after the swarm. So the 2, I believe, 2 casts of carrion after the swarm. He will also shoot them from himself. So this is basically just a warning that'll yell at you, all the melee basically, that hey, stuff is coming from the boss, you need to back up. And just watch out for that. I believe it also has a noise attached to it, I think, maybe, possibly. And then this is the Among Us WeakAuras we used. There's the BDG one works as well, but we just use this one. You know, you vote, and basically as soon as you see people above 2 votes, you can hit them. Also note, though, a Demon Hunter, if they're one of the chosen people that can see debuffed players, they can see who the imposters are, even if it's themselves, using their Spectral Sight. So keep that in mind as well. If you have your Demon Hunter picked and they're vocal, they can help you solve this pretty quickly as well. Now let's just get into this pretty quickly. Like I said, it's not too much. I'm gonna actually speed up this VOD a little bit. Not too much. So we pull them off to the side here initially. We have a range kind of positioned out here, baiting the Slumber Clouds there, and we have a melee DPS head marked with the moon, and you see he's running out there. They're running out there to bait that Slumber Puddle, just to get good puddles initially, and that'll kind of trickle down for the rest of the fight, where you really want to make sure those Slumber Cloud baits are good. Right, fears, they just run straight out towards the middle of the room and towards the edge. You don't want to overlap these fear puddles, because if, for example, if these were overlapped and this person, for example, was in both of them, the first one would clear, the second one would fear them. So you want to make sure that they're not stacked on top of each other, and that you're having people kind of spread where they're clearing, right? Just to make it a little bit safer for this person in the middle. Because right, if this person's like surrounded by like 4 cleanses, it's a problem, right? It's much harder to aim and not hit them. So spread them out a little bit. They keep baiting. And the other thing here is don't be scared to aggressively move bosses between frontals, right? You're going to see us do a fair bit of moving after major mechanics. And it's just you have so much space in this room, so you might as well use it. First swarm is when we bloodlust, by the way, of course. We have everyone pretty much holding CDs for this first swarm. You do a ton of damage in it. And as well, you see like the spirit link right near the end of the thing. Goes through the last tick, and we're super healthy. Do note, that first one is always the easiest, right? They ramp up over the course of the fight. So sometimes, you know, maybe they want to move CDs because they don't think they're getting value. They will get value on the third one when their CDs are coming up again. So just keep that in mind. Do not move CDs around too much, because that one seems free, but the later ones are scary. And see, now you're going to see, here's the big carrions coming up in a few seconds. So it says big carrion even in big wigs. And so Mal'Ganis, you're going to see here in a second, is going to also shoot out these green puddles from himself. Here it is. There they are, right? So that's what that big WeakAuras there is warning you about. It's like, hey, watch Mal'Ganis, back up a little bit. You see all the melee is kind of arced out, and they're going to move back in after they see where these green ones spawn. All the meanwhile, like, people are baiting all these Slumber Clouds back here. And we're moving as necessary. We don't want to be too close to these Slumber Puddles. And that's pretty much, like, at this point, like, that's the fight. Like, the fight is pretty much done at this point, right? You see the Among Us here. We spread out a little bit. I went to help the person that had a debuff still. As a tank, it's something you can do in the Among Us phase to kind of reduce the raid damage a little bit. And meanwhile, people are just keeping kicks or CCing this Corporal Shadow. And people are spreading slightly and just jumping up and down. And you see votes go out, And then you'll see as soon as someone gets a third vote there, they'll start getting DPS down. So we know it's those two. And now you see you have this debuff here. Also watch, of course, that knockback. It will push you off the edge. It will push you into Slumber Puddle, so just watch your positioning there. If you step out of range of someone, your screen will turn a bit of a different color here, and you have 4 seconds to get back into range of anybody on your team. So you'll see it happen occasionally because of how tanks are positioned. We'll just occasionally step back into each other. But it's not too hard to deal with, right? It's basically a non-issue for melee because we're all together at all times. So range kind of just have to be careful, and the fear debuff has to be careful because like that comes back to what I was talking about initially about the fear debuff. If no one clears on this fear debuff or one of the fear debuffs, for example, they're going to get horrified, right? Because they don't have someone within range of them. So this is doubly important to make sure that there is at least one person clearing at each fear debuff, just to ensure that they also don't get horrified. And the other thing I want to make sure is like, for melee DPS, if you get this fear, don't cheese your boss up time. Don't go at the last second. Move immediately, because the range also need to move and start surrounding you, right? So the faster you get out there, the more likely that range are able to clear cleanly and aim their swarm puddles better. Speaking of, here's one of the overlaps, right, where you have green puddles coming out at the same time. And look at this, is exactly why those arrow WeakAuras are good, right? None of those green puddles went at the boss. It's exactly what that arrow WeakAura does. That's the first overlap. The next, I believe it's Among Us phase, also has a pretty nasty overlap. Let's see, it's in 18 seconds here. So here's the Among Us going out, and then stuff is detonating. Oh, there's no clearing. Never mind, I lied. Maybe it's the Among Us after that. Oops. Basically, it's just about learning through these overlaps and see how aggressively we're moving here, right? We have another swarm in a bit here. Yeah, it's got to be the next Among Us phase then. But again, it's just about surviving these swarms. And you see, like, this 6 heal, like, having 2 players out with swarms during the third, or with carrion, sorry, during the third swarm is extremely scary. And probably one of the only reasons they end up living is because of 6 healing, right? 6 healing makes this fight a lot easier. Let me see if there's another bad overlap. Ah, yes, here. So this Among Us. So these ones, just note, if you get gripped into these green puddles, they're not real. You have a bit of a grace period. It's just the later ones that are real. So when they're coming through, you don't panic too much, but obviously don't stand on them for too long. And that is pretty much this fight. Like I mentioned, it's not too different from Heroic. Very minor changes. It's basically just a big throughput check, so definitely recommend 6 healing, as the check is on healing, not really on damage. Anyways, though, appreciate you guys watching this. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like it. I'll be covering Rygolon and Jailer, of course, for this raid on Mythic difficulty. And, of course, I do high Mythic plus keys. You can check out my Twitch as well at Tactics, where I stream all that stuff. Otherwise, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.